Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirsha Namam. Namaste and welcome to this session on guided meditation. As usual, we will go through our meditation process. Let us meditate. Sit upright, keeping your back, neck and head in a relaxed upright position. Arms, hands on your knees or in your lap. Visualize that your whole body is strong and healthy and pure. Direct your attention to various limbs of the body, and as you do so, visualize that each part is strong and healthy and pure. Starting with your feet, ankles, calves, knees and thighs, back, stomach, chest and shoulders, arms and elbows, hands, fingers, your neck, face and head. Visualize the whole body is filled with a pure light. Now focus your mind on your breath. Visualize that as you breathe in, you're breathing in the light of knowledge, which dispels all the darkness of ignorance. Inhale and exhale in a deep rhythmic way. Fill your whole lungs, and as you exhale, empty them all out in a slow, deep rhythmic way. Breathe in this way thrice. Now let us pray for the welfare of ourselves and all beings in the universe. May the divine consciousness, which is infinite existence, knowledge, bliss, out of which all beings have come, which sustains all creation and ultimately takes everything back. May that Supreme Being direct our minds away from the external material world to that internal world, lighting it up with the light of spiritual knowledge and dispelling the darkness of spiritual ignorance. May our minds seek that higher truth within us, the source of all beauty, purity and goodness. May all be happy, may all be peaceful and joyful. Send out your thoughts to your right. Visualize your powerful thoughts going out forever and helping and uplifting all beings throughout the universe. Send your thoughts to your left, in front and behind, above and below, in all directions, with you as the center, anchored in the divine. May your prayers go out for the welfare of all beings throughout the universe. Now withdraw your mind from the outside world and focus it within you. Visualize your physical body strong and steady, filled with this divine light within you. Visualize that interpenetrating this physical body, and subtler than this is your mental body. the abode of thoughts and ideas. Visualize that finer than this is the luminous knowledge body, interpenetrating and sustaining the earlier two. And beyond this is the ocean of consciousness, which forms the substratum of our being, the infinite existence, knowledge, bliss, one with the whole universe and all creation. In that ocean of consciousness, Chidakasha, visualize a beautiful lotus, fully bloomed, full of freshness and fragrance. Therein, visualize a flame, steady like a lamp kept in a windless place, radiating its light in all directions, dispelling the darkness of ignorance. Imagine that light to be the light of knowledge that dispels the darkness of ignorance. It's a light of purity that fills and illuminates all your bodies and being with holiness. It's a source of supreme peace that fills you with serenity and tranquility. It is the essence of infinite bliss that fills you with inner joy. It's a source of strength that makes you strong spiritually, morally, emotionally, intellectually, and physically. You may replace that flame with any divine form of your choice and visualize that living presence full of grace, compassion, ready to shower and fill you with spiritual qualities from within. Feel the divine presence protecting and guiding you, nourishing and cherishing you. You may repeat the mantra that has been given by a spiritual teacher, or the Gayatri mantra, or Om, or if you wish, Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya Namaha. The idea is to keep your mind anchored to this divine presence within you and maintain a watchful vigilance. If your mind wanders away to anything, bring it and focus it to the divine within you. Anchor your mind within you in this way for 5 minutes. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. So we have been trying to practice meditation. I said trying to because meditation is the 8 steps, dhyana or 7th step. But as we practice, we become better at it. During these steps of asana, sitting in a particular posture, breathing, pranayama, withdrawing the mind from the external world, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, trying to concentrate on one object. That's very important. It should not be changing day to day. And as you become more proficient in it, it becomes dhyana, concentration. And samadhi is when the meditator and the object of meditation become one. That is perfection. That perfect concentration is what we are aiming for. The mind is very distracted, dispersed in all directions. We want to concentrate it, just like the magnifying glass can concentrate the sunlight onto one point. Likewise, the mind which is going out through all the sense organs, we restrain that outward going tendency by sitting in a quiet, nice place, withdrawing the mind from external towards an internal, and trying to anchor it in that one particular point. The mind will try to run away. Again and again you bring it back. That is the wrestling, mental wrestling that all of us we have to do. And if your mind has got that vigilant watchfulness over the whole process, that means one part is trying to repeat that mantra and keep it in that loop, and another part is watching and very alert that it does not take off. And the moment it takes off, before it goes away very far, it brings him back. That watchful mind, the buddhi, is your best help. That's a sarathi. And as you become more and more vigilant and alert and watchful within, you'll find that powerful reflective mind, introspective mind is a great help in your everyday life also, because it's the same mind we're using for everything. So that which is utilized for a spiritual purpose will also have the extra side bonuses, so to say, where you do well in wherever you apply this mind in study or business or whatever. Anyway, the foundations of the spiritual life, according to Maharishi Patanjali, are these 2 yama and niyama, the great vows that have to be practiced throughout the day, throughout your life. On these strong foundations, this whole spiritual life has to be established. And we were discussing over the last 2-3 classes about these first 2 stages of yama and niyama. We talked about this yama, which are the restraints, what we should not do, ahimsa, non-violence or non-injury to anyone in thought, word or deed. So it's very, very difficult. You have to be very, very vigilant, otherwise the old samskaras and tendencies will come. So eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, as the Americans say. That same vigilance, eternal, is the price of liberty. Liberty here means mukti. If you want freedom, you have to be very, very vigilant within. And so we have talked in that length about why we should not do any harm to others, because really those others are not others. We are present in all. There is one ocean behind all the waves. The moment we acknowledge and understand that it's the same water behind every wave, or it's the same ocean behind every wave, that means if I do harm to some other wave, other person, I'm really harming myself. And in that process, we only strengthen that sense of difference. So any opposite sentiment of love and kindness and compassion, of sacrifice, is trying to assert that oneness behind it. And that's why we should try to do it deliberately, intentionally, because that will become a habit into our thought, word and deed. And through every such act, we are becoming closer and closer to that oneness, which is our spiritual essence. So really, we're not helping others. If you harm somebody, we spiritually harm ourselves. We talked about that. Then Satya, we talked about being truthfulness. And last time I spoke about this little incident in the life of Swami Brahmananda as a little boy, when he told a little joke, a lie in a joke, like many people do. And his spiritual teacher, who was a yogi, who could see behind or into the mind of everyone, who could see that small act of telling a simple lie as a joke had left an effect, which was a cloud of ignorance, which was covering the inner light of knowledge which you are supposed to manifest. So if that happens in such an insignificant way, imagine the effect of somebody who forms a habit, who is not very alert to this idea. And every time he does that, he is punishing himself by putting another layer of ignorance, another layer of ignorance. If he does it deliberately, if he thinks this is how life is, this is how business will go, or something like that, then what happens? In exchange for some material thing outside, some comforts and wealth or whatever, we are doing a great disservice to ourselves spiritually. The inner joy and peace that we are seeking, in ignorance or out of temptation or weakness, we are doing the exact opposite. So that's why in every spiritual path, truthfulness is said to be an important spiritual discipline. No compromise about that. If we do compromise, then it shows that we are not serious about our spiritual life. That's all. We can't go to the east while trying to go to the west. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, Holy Mother says, he who speaks the truth sits in the lap of God. God means your own higher self. That means you are anchored in that. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Sri Ramakrishna says, in this age, Kali Yuga, truthfulness alone is the tapasya. It's not going to be easy. That's why it's called tapasya. But that fire, that friction will bring out the fire that's inside. And we want that fire to ignite, so to say. So we will practice truthfulness. And you'll see great people whom you remember, whether it's Raja Harishchandra, whether it's Raja Dasharatha, or even parents of Father Sri Ramakrishna. They would give up everything, property, this, everything, but they would not forsake truth. Because how God is truth, and if you give up truth, then how you can get God? So God means your higher spiritual self. Okay. So today, we talked about ahimsa, satya, asteya, non-stealing, not taking anything that does not rightfully belong to you, which you have not worked for. So this tendency of getting something which does not belong to us, taking it away, that is called stealing. And being very, very careful that we do not do this in different ways. It's not only about material things. It's like, it could be as subtle as you're working for some company, you're getting paid for 80 hours for a fortnight. Okay, that's what your fortnightly salary comes. But if you are late to work, or you are at work but doing things that is not what you're getting paid for. So in a very subtle, fine way, that is also stealing. You are getting something, the money of the company where you have not worked for. That type of subtleties, sensitivity will develop, alertness will develop as your mind becomes pure and say, I will not do this, I'll be very sincere in everything. Not taking anything that does not belong to you in thought, word or deed also. That means your mind should not even crave for something that does not belong to you, type of thing. So that's a spiritual discipline. And we practice. Today we'll talk about the fourth one, brahmacharya. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Brahmacharya is a spiritual discipline that is prescribed in all spiritual traditions, especially for those who are very serious about spiritual life. That's why this monastic tradition has come. Monks will come. Practicing of chastity, restraint of the senses. So why is that so important? Well, we are always trying to elevate our mind. Mind can go up or it can go down. When it goes down, we call it a depressed mind. Okay, that's what depressed means, lowered. Elevate sadhana means that we inject that energy into it so that it lifts up to its higher source. It's like a hot air balloon. Okay, and you want to, if you're on the ground, you have one view of the world around you. A small tree, everything is so very big. But if somebody says, if you go higher and higher, then the whole view becomes wider and wider and everything is so nice. So nice. So even that, those big things will recede and become insignificant around you also, because you got the bigger picture. So how do you do that? Of course, you have to put your hot air balloon and inject the energy or heat into it. It will inflate, and you cut the rope so that it's not holding you back. It goes higher and higher and higher. Now, if there are some holes in that hot air balloon, no matter how much hot air you put in there, it will keep on leaking out and the balloon will not take off. Likewise, the energy that is in this body-mind complex, if it's constantly being dissipated at very gross level through these senses, through physical enjoyment, especially through the physical enjoyment, that what will happen is we become very much tied out to this body consciousness. That is the rope that will anchor us, and every time I say myself, I am this body, idea will be there. So if we want to lift this mind or sense of identity from I am a body to I am a mind or I am a spiritual being, then this mind has to elevate. So constantly engaging the mind at a body level through practice of non-chastity, through that the idea of body consciousness is become stronger. I am a body, and then it's attached to another body outside. That is why in all spiritual traditions, to cut off this strong identification with the body, chastity or brahmacharya is practice. You want to restrain that energy. We want to sublimate that energy into a purified form that will uplift us. And if it's not done that, then constantly it just leaks out. It's like an unbaked pot. You put some water into it, it just seeps out. Sri Ramakrishna says it's like a farmer rice farmer who made a paddock, filled it with water, and planted his rice. And next morning when he came, he saw it was all empty. There was no water because there were a few holes in the embankment and the water leaked out. Okay, it's like charging a battery, your car battery. If the insulation box around there is not very good, no matter how much electric charge you put, it will keep on leaking out. Likewise, this body, if it's not insulated from the outside world, then the energy that is there, it will just come. It's like a small creek that is running out forever into the ocean. Nothing happens. But if you can build a embankment there, a dam into it, over time that water will fill in. And as it fills in, the pressure level increases. And as the pressure increases, you can do something with that pressure. You can turn a turbine and generate electricity. So likewise, this energy within the body has to be conserved. Not only conserved through spiritual discipline of japa and meditation, this energy is then transformed from a gross level into a very fine energy. That energy is called ojas, and it rises from the lower chakras along the spinal cord and gets stored in the brain. That is what is the source of spiritual power. And anyone who has that will have that wonderful influence around. Whatever they say is impregnated with tremendous amount of spiritual energy that influences that person around. He might not speak in the most eloquent, beautiful language, but whatever he says has a tremendous amount of impact at a very deep level. That is why we call that a magnetic personality, a very charismatic person. That charismatic power that they have doesn't come from wonderful oratory or scientific conceptual knowledge. It's something that's around them, and when you get around them, you get influenced by that field that is around there. And really, in spiritual, in the path of religion, it is that energy that is being, or that influence that's being transmitted from the spiritual teacher to the student. And when the student comes in that field around, just like there's a magnet, and you bring another piece of metal into it, the metal will feel that magnetic field around it and immediately feels that influence around it. Likewise, when a student comes in the magnetic field of the teacher, so to say, he finds that very easily and quickly his ideas about spiritual life or always get aligned to that spiritual goal. He said that was so easy to understand. It is because of that influence. And in spiritual life, it's not much about intellectual things. It's about the transference of that energy or that influence that helps the spiritual seekers align their samskaras and previous thoughts in that spiritual direction. And that's why to be able to have that flexibility and to retain that influence. When you go to a spiritual place, a tirtha or some spiritual good company or retreat or something, for 2-3 days your whole mind has forgotten the whole outside world and is simply aligned to that beautiful ideal of realization and all that. But when you get out of that place, you find the whole mind just simply goes in its old direction. To be able to retain it in that direction, a residual magnetism, so to say, that power to hold on to a spiritual idea and retain it, that comes from that inner energy that we conserve. And that's why practicing chastity or continence is very, very important. Sri Ramakrishna would even advise to householders, after giving birth to one or two child, the husband and wife should live together like brothers and sisters, as spiritual companions seeking this spiritual truth. That is how it should be. Away from the animal level, beyond the human level to the divine level. Swamiji says, man is a combination of animality, humanity and divinity. It depends at what level you are trying to manifest that energy and power. So if it's at the lower level, animal level, then it's all eating, drinking, making merry, procreating. At the intellectual level, it's little higher, but the highest is at the divine level. And that is why in all spiritual Indian representation of any gods and goddesses, you'll find that they have some animal as the vahana, the vehicle on which they ride. Otherwise it does not make any sense for Lord Ganesha, who is so big, to ride on a small mouse. What does it mean? It means to manifest the divine, you have to subdue and transcend and control the animal. Bring it under your control. That animal tendency that at a physical level, body level, is what is trying through the practice of chastity and continence, is that what we are trying to do. So that's very, very important. And the fifth one is aparigraha, non-covetousness, not being greedy. Because greed is the desire of something that you don't need but still want, so to say, to possess. It might not necessarily be money or material things. It could be greed for power. It could be greed for name and fame. In very subtle ways it will come. But all of these have that one defect of taking the mind away from within you to the outside world. It's a destructive energy because it sucks your mind to the external things. It puts value on things which are not ultimately very valuable in the spiritual sense. You might get something very good in the material world, but from the spiritual point of view, when you depart from this world, everything is left behind. The most powerful person and the most powerless person are the same. They say, when the game is on the chessboard, the king is very powerful and the pawn is a very small piece to be sacrificed. But when the game is over and all the pieces are put in the box, the king and the pawn are lying side by side. Likewise, that's a story. In life, all this different manifestation of power, position, everything is there. When the game is over, we all lie down in that same coffin or are reduced to that same few kilos of ashes. Realizing the insignificance of this valuelessness, ultimate valuelessness of what this world is. And the real value is within us, that infinite existence, knowledge, bliss, beauty, purity is the nature of me, Atman. Somehow, out of ignorance, this Atman has got entangled with this Prakriti made out of the three gunas, Sattva, Raja and Tamas. And out of this three gunas, this whole creation has been projected. What is there? These three bodies that we talk about. The knowledge body, Prajna Sharira. The luminous mental body, and then this physical body. Behind that is the Atman. When this Atman, the light of Atman falls on that luminous Buddhi, at that junction, just like when you put a pot of water out in the sun, there's a reflection. The reflection happens when the sunlight falls on that water. If the water is very calm and steady, you get a beautiful round circle. But if it's full of waves, then the reflection is appearing to be moving. The undisturbed mind, distracted mind, is a mind with full of wave motion. We are trying to make that calmer and calmer and calmer. So there's a single wave only, which is the name of the deity, the mantra. Ultimately, that wave also will be removed, and you will have that perfect reflection. And then this I sense will understand that it has nothing to do with this body-mind complex, but it is really the son of the Atman, so to say. We are trying to detach the mind from the external world, and step by step, stepping back into our higher self so that everything becomes objective. That means the external world is subjective. Then I take one step back and I say, I am not the mind. The thoughts are also in me. I am not the mind. That's a very powerful, important thing. But most of the time that idea is not there. You don't say, I have an unhappy thought. You say, I am unhappy. I am happy. I know. I don't know. Really, these are changes that are happening in the mental mind. But that experience will only come if you can detach yourself from the mind and step back into your buddhi nature as you are separate from it. So that's why what we do is during meditation, the whole psychology is there, is that we detach our mind from the outside world. That's easier done. Close your eyes and senses and everything. But then inside all these thoughts are bubbling. Thinking, that's your sense of identity. We try to detach ourselves one step back and say, I am different from the mind and I'm observing these thoughts that are there. And there are thousands of thoughts bubbling from here and there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to at least have some degree of control by making sure there's only one thought repeats itself. That's where the repetition of the mantra comes. You're vigilant that otherwise don't take you off on a tangent. As you develop that proficiency to maintain it in that loop, so to say, same thought is repeating in the cycle, that's a mantra, then that energy that is conserved in there will empower you to even detach it from that also. And you step back into your Atman nature and said, oh, this knowledge body, this mental body, this physical body are so many limitations which cover the inner light that I am. I have to drop them off and abide in my Atman nature, the ever free, ever pure being that I am all the time, even here and now. Only in ignorance we do not know, and in that ignorance we think we are somebody born, dying, becoming old, and all these things, and full of suffering. So to maintain that vigilance all the time, this type of discrimination is very, very important. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha dosanu darshanam. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Shri Krishna Bhagavan says, knowledge means trying to see dosh anudarshanam. Try to see the defect behind this whole process and embodiment of birth and death. The womb and the tomb, in the two ends, so to say. In between, jara, becoming older and older, old age creeps in, all the senses become old, and the teeth falls off, you can't hear, can't see, and all those things. You feel imprisoned in this body. And if there are some diseases of pressure or this diabetes, that makes it even more. And diseases, vyadhi. Ultimately, whether you have a healthy body or a diseased body, one day you will have to disconnect and go. And with that, this whole world of relatives, name, fame, power, position, everything will become a big zero. If that is the ultimate goal, value of things. On the other side, this wonderful idea of this infinite nature of the Atman. I am that infinite ocean of consciousness. Out of me, universes come. And if the universes disappear, I still abide. That is my true nature. So, if we foolishly, out of ignorance, constantly go out trying to get all these small tidbit things, ignoring the wonderful, real gold, so to say, the Atman is within us, then that is not very, very smart. In ignorance will do. Nature will keep on teaching us. Every time we stretch out our tentacles, try to get something, it will smack us and saying, what happiness you are seeking for, it's not here, it's within you. But in ignorance, we again and again are trying to do that until that awakening will come. And with the help of the scriptures and all those things, when this becomes very, very strong, then this outward tendency to seek happiness outside, that becomes restrained and you begin to seek that inner bliss. The tendency to seek freedom outside will be restrained and you begin to seek that. The tendency to seek external beauty of the body and whatever things are beautiful, house, car, or whatever gives value to you, that also restrained, because you understand the most beautiful being is what I am already. Nothing has to be given. External freedom, knowledge, happiness, everything is inside. We are that. It's not that we will get it. It's just we have covered ourselves with these bodies, and this identification with this body-mind complex is the prison house that we live in, and instead of breaking it down and trying to free out of, we are constantly trying to build it, make it stronger, repair it, and keep it strong. Really, this has to be dismantled, and like a lion that is in a cage, this Atman has to break it apart and come out and assert its freedom. That is what is the ultimate purpose of life. Meditation, concentration of this mind to develop this type of discrimination, alertness about the true nature of this external world and life, what it can give to you, and it's all a zero ultimately. It might be a big zero, small zero, tall zero, short zero, but ultimately is zero. And if we put no matter how many zeros you put one after the other, the value is zero. Unless you put a 1, it does not increase. And so that one is that self-knowledge. I am that being that I am seeking for. Tattvamasi. When the student goes to the teacher, he says, the God that you're seeking for is not some being out in the clouds out there. You yourself are that being. But in ignorance, you have reduced yourself to this human being, which is not much different from the animal. And you yourself have the key to unlock that. No one can help you if we ourselves do not help. Okay, so we are our best friend and we are our worst enemy. When our mind is going down, 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 we forget ourselves, drift away from our true nature. When the same mind is restrained and lifted up, 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 then we are our best friend. Atmanneva, Atmano Bandhu, Atmanneva Ripura Atmana. Ripu means enemy, friend means Bandhu. This constant alertness is very, very important in spiritual life. And to maintain that degree of alertness, satsang, spiritual company, reading books, lives is very, very important. Sri Ramakrishna says, repeating the mantra that keeps your mind focused on the spiritual ideal. Mantra is the name or the sound form of the divine being that's inside. And as we repeat that mantra with great concentration and devotion, our mind resonates and with that higher energy that's within us. So that's one way to elevate and uplift the mind. Constant repetition of the mantra. It might seem very, very simple. What's the big deal about that? But unless you practice it, you will not know how powerful this technique. And that's why of all the types of yajnas that are there, sacrifices, japa yajna, repetition of the mantra is the most powerful. Yajnanam japosmi, Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So these fundamentals are there. Non-violence in thought, word and deed. Okay, truthfulness in thought, word and deed. Okay, ahimsa, satya, asteya, non-stealing even in thought, word and deed. Practicing of continence or chastity in thought, word and deed. Mind should not even try to think of attaching itself to another physical body. And how do you do that? Dukkha dosh anudarshanam. Look at that. What is this body? You will visualize it. If you're a doctor, you will see it's some skeleton stitched together, some ligaments with muscles and packed up in a body, and dressed up with some hair, and you dress up with all cosmetic and this and that. But inside are not so very nice things. And at the end of the day, when old age comes and the skin shrivels up and all those things, no matter how much you try to arrest that decay, it doesn't happen. Ultimately, one fine day, the life force will depart and it will decompose into a very rotten smelling thing. It has to be very quickly disposed with. And here we are worshipping that, exercising that, feeding that, entertaining that, and singing that. So when you discriminate in this way, the attachment to this becomes less and less and less. So we have discussed the 5 stages of yama: ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. And next week we will take up the niyama: saucha, santosha, tapa, swadhyaya, ishwar pranidhana. Until then, Please do your regular meditations, contemplate on these teachings, and be very, very vigilant and alert about these fundamentals of the moral and ethical disciplines. Keep safe and keep your mind directed towards that eternal truth that is inside all of us. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.